First thing are traditional consequences. This is what we've all understood. We all grew up with traditional consequences. There was no PBIS or restorative practice when we were kids. It was all traditional consequences, and it was all about punishment. That's how they controlled behavior when we were kids. We got punished whenever we didn't do anything, when we knew we were supposed to do. So we broke a rule. A lot of y'all remember corporal punishment. We used to get corporal punishment, and then around the mid-90s, they just didn't warn us and said, okay, we're going to start suspending you. Like, there was no warning, no explanation, just like, you got to go home. Like, wait, just give me the strap. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's what we're used to. So that's what we ended up having as far as for punishment. And it was effective during that time period. And let me step back and say this. The older generation always talks about the kids these days. Remember when we were kids, we were the problem kids. You know, the older generation is always like, oh, these kids, they don't know. It's a different era. It's always a different era. That's all it is. It's just the kids are having to adapt in that particular era. So the kids these days are just adapting to the era that they're in, just the same way that we did. Like, it's just a different world, and it's a different way of parenting and dealing with kids depending on the era and the access to different things. I'm pretty sure the way my parents raised me would not work today. Like, because like they used to, I remember when I would be on the phone at night, they would just take the phone off the hook so I wouldn't talk to my friends. Now kids they don't even use the phone. They text each other, so it's just a whole different era of being able to deal with kids. So we got to put that in perspective. So the reason why traditional consequences aren't as effective today is because it's a different era of kids. And so you have to be able to adjust to that. Because what traditional consequence, how punishment works because of what happens before the punishment and after the punishment. That what's happening before the punishment is the teaching of the behavior. What's happening after the punishment is the teaching of the behavior. And that's what parents were doing a lot of back then. They were focused on teaching the behavior up front, reinforcing the behavior with the consequence, but then reinforcing the teaching of the behavior after the fact, because that was what focus. That was the community aspect of it. That community aspect has gone. And it's really stops at the parent piece. But we've also got to take into account that society has changed in this way. Most parents don't have as much time to be able to spend time with their kids, being able to reinforce these things the same way they did back then as well. So these are the factors that have put us in this situation where traditional consequences are not as effective. But with that being said, traditional consequences are necessary. You have to have some traditional consequences.